Good afternoon, Sales Academy. Adam Brooks, here to share with you some more musings. So for YouTube followers, LinkedIn followers, Twitters, tweeters, whatever you call them, grammars, podcast listeners, YouTube watchers, lurkers, everyone, and then anything in between. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening and watching. Topic for conversation today is systemize the routine, humanize the exception. I'll say that again, systemize the routine, humanize the exception. Now, this is something that I've been banging on about since, I don't know, before my whiskers were gray. And we used to talk a lot in Sales Academy and still do, but in the live workshops more so, we used to talk, one of the days we used to do, which was Foundation Day, or as renamed in the future, Business Without Being a Bell End, that we then changed it to a number of years ago, sorry. We used to talk about cottage pie, and that was basically how to cottage pie your business. And the simple function of that was how to build processes and systems that weren't too scary, that actually delivered what you needed to do consistently. And that came from my hatred of mashed potato, because I think mashed potato is prison food, you know, and I'm not in prison, so I'm not going to eat it. So I don't know how to make a cottage pie, despite the fact that I'm a pretty good chef, because I don't like mash, even if you do like celeriac mash and all that sort of stuff. No thanks. So my business partner at the time, I asked her a question one day and said, look, how do you make your cottage pie? And we wrote it down on the flip chart, and it literally took 1 minute and 40 seconds. And she went through a load of things that she did. And then I asked the room, because it was in a live training. And I asked the room and said, look, so if you've never stepped foot in a kitchen before, could you make an edible cottage pie following this process? And it was things like fry the mince, add the onions, add some stock, salt, seasoning, boil the potatoes, mash them, add cheese, milk, salt and pepper, and all that sort of stuff, right? So it took 1 minute and 40 seconds to get it out, looked at it all, bang. I said, could you make an edible cottage pie following those instructions? And they all went, yeah. And I was like, really? If you've never stepped in a kitchen before, you've got no culinary experience, could you make an edible cottage pie following the? And then they kind of stepped back and went, well, probably not. And I was like, why? And they said, well, you know, where do you source your ingredients from? And he said, fry the mince in what? Add the onions. Did you chop them? Or did you got one great big Spanish bastard onion midway through that you fork out, you know? He's like, well, what stock do you add? Fish stock? You know, so there was this whole conversation that then came out of the details that went in between the different stages. So we were able to elaborate on all of the obvious stuff that we assume that people would know just by having a process nailed in 1 minute and 40 seconds. And if that's something that we do on a regular basis, that's what I'm talking about in terms of systemizing the routine. If you in your life or your business, you have things that you need to do on a regular basis, then systemize the routine. You know, and I heard this week with a client where they've got a client that was struggling to, you know, at the morning time, getting the kids to nursery and all that sort of stuff, and blah, getting the kids to school and pre-work, getting ready for it. The pressure of all of that was blowing up pretty much every day in their faces, in the child's faces, and wasn't starting the day right for everybody. So my client challenged their client to systemize that routine a bit more in that morning, to go, so what do we need to do to make that happen like clockwork? And what time do we need to start doing that to make it happen? And who needs to be involved, and how do we need to communicate that to make it look? And you start to systemize that routine, not to create robots, but to create harmony, understanding, clarity, outputs, all right? People working together for a common goal. So systemize the routine, humanize the exception. And that the second part of that comes into play, which is not everyone's going to fall in line. Not every single time you follow a process is it going to make sense. Press this button and this happens, and this, sometimes it doesn't. So what do you need to do in that instance? And that's what I'm talking about, humanize the exception. But you can't, if you're trying to live a spinning round like a non-stop entrepreneur, pinging from place to place, trying to put everything in place, trying to humanize and systemize everything at the same, it's just, your head's going to fall off. So look at your daily routines. Look at your daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly routines. What do you need to do in your business that's regular and consistent? Finance, marketing, sales, systems, people, right? You, the business owner. What are the things you need to do? Systemize the routine ones, the regular ones. Systemize them, then we can humanize the exception. You want help with this? Get in touch. It's that simple. All right. This is what we do for bread and butter. Love you guys. Peace out. See you soon.